Hello there, welcome. Thanks for joining me on my pokey little YouTube channel. The purpose of this video is to show you the latest version of the Sinden trigger fix mod, which is the latest version at the time of posting. This is the latest in a long line of remixes of this mod, and I'm going to show you what the changes are over the previous versions and how to install it if that's what you want to do. Just in case you're not aware, the purpose of the mod is to reduce the amount of travel that the trigger has in order to make sure that it doesn't travel quite so far when you pull it back and not so far when you release it. And the idea is that it should enable you to shoot faster, more often, and hopefully improve your game when you play your light gun games. It's all down to a matter of preference. It might be that you might not notice any difference at all, or it might make the world of difference to you, depending on how fussy you are, I guess. But I certainly find it useful, and so do many others. Now, let me show you what the differences are over the previous versions. This is a remix of what's known as the Sinden Trigger Fix mod version 2 reinforced, or if that's not exactly what it is, they're all the right words, but possibly not all in the right order, which is this one. This was designed by Slick66, and it was a remix of the version 2, the original version 2. No, sorry. It was a remix of the reinforced version, which was by Kevman323, which in turn was a remix of the original version by Hexxed. The differences between my version and the previous version are very few. There's only three differences, to be honest. Now, if you look, this is the original version 2, or the last version 2. There's a channel here. This channel is where the long arm of the spring is supposed to rest. Now, what I found when I was installing these in my light guns is I found it was quite hard to get the spring arm to rest in this channel. So in my version, I modified it slightly so that there is here just a little tab. I don't know if you can see that. Let me see if I can get it. There you go. So there's a little tab, a little bit of extra wall here. Oh, actually, that's not in the light, is it? How about that? It's a little bit extra wall here, and that's enough to stop the spring from flicking up over this edge, and it keeps it located in this channel quite well when you're installing it. Once it's installed, it's not a problem. And to be honest, again, this is a small difference. It might not make a difference to you. If you've already got one of these installed in your light gun, there is no need to upgrade. Just say that out there. But if you're a new light gun owner and you want to put this in your Sinden light gun, then, you know, it's up to you. You might want to choose this one, perhaps, or you might want to go for that one. But I don't see why you would want to choose that one over this one. But like, if you've already got that, you don't need it. But if you haven't got one, then maybe go for this one. So that's the first change. And the other change is two changes for one purpose. So you might notice the big difference between these two here. The most obvious difference is this post. This post raising up here, which is not present on the old version. Now, the purpose of this post is because this is where the spring is and where the trigger assembly tends to be. Now, just up here, this is where the USB cable is plugged into the main board, and the cable travels across here and down that way. It's meant to go across the top, but sometimes, in very few cases, it is quite rare. Sometimes some people have reported that the USB cable tends to find its way in this area and interferes with the trigger, creating friction and bad performance. So the purpose here of this post, and as you can see, this little cutaway section of the block up here, is so that the USB cable can rest in this position going down here and around that post before it then makes its way down the handle of the gun, and there's no chance that it will interfere with the trigger. That's what that's for. Like I said, this is a rare issue, but it's not a non-existent one. So I thought maybe while I'm adding this little tab here, I might as well make that change as well, and hopefully everyone will be happy and we might not need any more changes in the future, but that remains to be seen. They are the changes that I made. That's the reason why I did it. Just those 3 little changes. Nothing more, nothing less. Now I'm going to show you how to install it in your light gun. And here I have, in case you didn't notice, a Sinden Lightgun. It's a grey one, and that is why I have printed a grey mod. Now, it doesn't really matter what colour mod you have. It's not going to be visible except for in one small area. I'll just point it out to you right here, just here. You can't see it, well, there isn't one in there at the moment, but as you can see, this is where the trigger cavity is. But right here, there will be visible just one line. It's this tab piece here, just that. That is the only bit that is exposed. And if it bothers you, then you might want to color match it to your gun, just so that the line by there is the same color as your gun. If you can't get the same color as your gun, then I would recommend going for black, because that line will be black and it will match the trigger itself. But otherwise, if you get a red one, a blue one, or a pink one, it doesn't really make a difference, because that's the only place it's going to be visible, so I wouldn't worry too much about it. The first thing you do when you want to disassemble your gun is take off this little orange ring, because many times I've taken apart a gun and I've forgotten to take the ring off and wondered why I couldn't take it apart, because it holds the 2 parts of the shells together. It's not an intentional part of the design, but that's kind of what happens, and it's confused me a few times. And then after that, these 2 screws, which hold the pump handle onto the gun, just unscrew them. They don't need to be fully unscrewed. I've already done it partially, but just enough so that they just let go. And I think that's it. There you go. So I haven't taken the screws completely out. They're still attached to the pump handle, and that's released those. And then I think there are just 7 screws in the main body of the gun. They're here, 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 and the last one is here, which was hidden underneath the pump. So it's important to take the pump off first. I've already taken these screws out, so you don't have to watch me unscrewing a toy, but once they're unscrewed, it comes apart pretty easily. Just lift it off carefully like that, and you want to make sure that this gun is laying down flat when you do so, because there are parts that will fall out, like the pump mechanism and spring itself, and possibly even the trigger. Now, this is the recoil model of the gun. If you didn't buy the recoil version, then this assemblage here will be missing from your gun, and this red and grey cable. This is the recoil unit, and this solenoid, that is what provides the force of the recoil. If you have a recoil gun and you have all this in here, be very careful of this huge capacitor. If you look at it funny, it'll give you a nasty shock, but be very careful of that. Now, this gun hasn't been powered on for a while, so I'm pretty sure there's no charge in it, but all the same, I'm going to be careful, and I'm going to steer clear of those contacts down there. Now, this is where the trigger mod is going to go. Now, this mod is small enough that it will fit in a light gun with or without the recoil unit, so you don't have to worry about whether it's going to fit. This is fine for both types of gun. Now, this is the USB cable I was talking about. Like I said, it goes right across that area, which is why some people have reported that it does interfere with the trigger. So I'm just going to move that out of the way a little bit while we work here. And before I take the trigger out, I'm just going to see if I can show you very carefully. This is the trigger. When you pull it down, it clicks onto this switch here. And the spring is there. It's pushing against this little post on the back of the trigger, causing it to return. So when we pull it out, we just want to make sure that we're careful that that doesn't pop out. It's not like to, but if we're careful, it'll just ping into into position resting against the shell here. So let's just do that. There we go. And here is the spring itself. Now, just for reference, it goes in that way with the short arm going back and the long arm going forward. Let's put it there. And here's the mod. And you can see here, there's a hole here which goes over this post, and a big hole here with a kind of a cross cut out there, which goes over this post, which has the corresponding cross section on it. Let's pop that into here. Be careful of this little wire. You don't want, actually, I'm going to just move that out of the way a little bit, just so I can pop that on there. And if it's printed well, it'll just fall right into place. Give it a little press down, and that's it. It's easy, it fits into place, it doesn't move about very much. I printed this myself. Very easy print, very quick print, doesn't take long to print at all. And that is most of it done. So now let's put this spring into place. Now I'm going to use the tweezers to help me out here. And there we go. Now they, as you can see, whoops, let's move that spring out of the way so we don't lose it, and that pump. I'll leave the lens there. Right, so as you can see, that spring has gone into position. Just make sure it's over the post there. So the long arm is in that channel, helped out by the little extra tab that I added. And the short arm is going back here, resting against this block. I'll just grab the trigger, get that ready. Okay. Now when we put this in, if I just put this in like that, this little spring arm is going to be on the wrong side of that little post on the trigger. So I need my poking device just to help me out here. So what I'm going to do is pull this arm back, and then I'm going to pop that onto, whoops, there we go, onto there, and then, oh, is it in there? Nope, I didn't do it right. Let's try again. There we go, that's better. Make sure it goes all the way down, and that's good. So there we go, we're in position. This is it. This is what the mod is. It's done. As you can see, I hope you can tell, there's less travel. So when I pull the trigger back, the trigger hits this little tab here, and it's just a small amount. It's like 1.5 millimeters, maybe 2 mils. It's just that little bit less travel, so it doesn't take as long for you to pull it all the way back before you release it. And then the return as well, instead of just going all the way up and hitting this block at the front, it's actually the top part of it is hitting this main block at the top, giving it again about 1.5 millimeters less travel in the forward direction. So, and that can make all the difference to some people. Now, I'm quite pleased actually that this grey PLA is a very good match for the colour of the gun. That was just the generic grey PLA. I think it was Elegoo, in case anyone's interested in getting a good match. It was an Elegoo grey PLA. Right, now let's make sure that this wire is back in its position, and here is the USB cable. Now let's bring this down, make sure it doesn't go across there, pop it down there around that post. There we go, no chance of that interfering with the trigger, and it wraps around the posts in the handle like so. You just pop that down, and then around there, and this snaked wrapping around the posts is what gives it its pull protection. If you yank on that, it's not going to yank it right out of the circuit board, because these turns give it that little bit of grip. Now the next thing to do is to put the shell back on. Now when we put the shell back on, we have to be mindful of 3 things, and they are, in sequence, the lens, the circuit board for the camera, and the strike plate for the solenoid. These 3 things have to be located correctly in the shell of the gun. Let's bring this down a little bit so this is in view. So this is the lens, and the lens sits in this little recess here. The circuit board for the camera sits in this channel here, and the strike plate for the recoil, if you have one, goes into this slot in here. And sometimes it can be a little bit of a challenge to locate these three things all at once in the right position when you're putting it on, because when you're putting it on, like this and you're blind. Now I just realized, and I've made this mistake before I do that, I've got to put this pump and spring back into position. It's quite straightforward. Just pop it in that channel there, and then pop the spring over the post there. Make sure it's in the channel, that's good. And it might not want to rest in the channel while the cover is off, so you can leave it open, but make sure you've got something at hand to poke in to help you get it in there. Now that's in more or less in the right position. Let's see if we can get this on without difficulty. Yeah, okay, so I've got those three things. I feel it's right, but the spring is poking out here. I can't lift it up to show you because the whole thing will fall apart if I do. So I'm going to poke it in just with my tweezers, and that's fallen into place nicely. Beautiful. Okay. And then the next thing to do would be to put all these screws back into place, put this pump back on, and of course, the all-important orange ring goes back onto there. I'm just going to show you before I end the video. There we go. Got the light right here. You can see now. Oh, I indicated the wrong place earlier. That little line, that little grey line there, that's the only clue that any casual observer from the outside will have that the trigger mod is in place. And like I said, if it's important to you, try and get a colour that matches your gun, or at the very least get a black one. If it's not important to you, it doesn't matter, because that's all anyone can see. And who's going to see it when you're holding a gun like that, right? Okay, that's all I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope you find that trigger mod useful. I'll put a link in the description where you can download the model. I will put it up available for download from the Bamboo Maker Studio, Bamboo Lab Maker Studio. And that's it. That's all I have. Enjoy the rest of your week. I'll see you next time.